Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Dharna Noor, joining you from Baltimore. Kenya, like much of sub-Saharan Africa, is in the grip of a deadly drought exacerbated by climate change. This past February, the government declared a national drought emergency. The Kenyan national elections are taking place on August 8th, Tuesday, and tensions of fear and violence is said to be high, with thousands leaving major cities like Nairobi. As food prices skyrocket, land shortages and food security have become a major election issue. With us to discuss these issues is Odenda Lumbumba. He's the head of the Kenya Land Alliance, a group that works on land reform in Kenya. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, too, for inviting me to your program.
Now, talk about Kenya's loss of usable farmland. How dramatic has it been, and over what period of time?
Yeah, Kenya has been facing food crisis since 2006, and this has been caused by drought, climate change, but much so by policy choices. We have had situations that have caused the small-scale farmers, who are the main food producers, not being at it in terms of producing the food that is required. When they produce it in abundance, it doesn't reach the market because of the poor infrastructure, because of lack of better access to markets, but much more so because the policies that we have been facing have been emphasizing, Kenya has been emphasizing on other sectors other than focusing squarely on agriculture, which is the mainstay for the Kenyan people.
And a recent study from NASA suggests that over 40 million Africans are struggling to survive off land with decreasing agricultural potential. What kind of regional response has there been to dealing with this crisis?
I think there have been varied responses. The most stable intervention would have been irrigable agriculture because of the changing conditions in climate. But they have been also responding, just giving food responses in terms of food relief, food for work, instructions, trying to help food for the children and women who are basically lactating women. But on a broader scale, the bigger problem has been that there has been dwindling acreage of small-scale farmers' acreage vis-a-vis the medium-scale farm holding. The extent has been that the smallholders have been bought out. They have been selling their land out of distress to medium-income holders who are basically retirees. People who are retiring at 60 plus are the ones who are now joining agriculture. So to the extent the age of the farmer has come to be associated with 62 and above, yet that is the point of diminishing energies. The youth between 15 and 35, they are hardly having any land and they don't engage in agriculture as such. And that has really worsened the situation, given the fact that not much has been mechanized in agriculture at the moment.
And these food shortages, we understand, have become a major influence in the country's upcoming elections. How have you seen that playing out in the media or in the presidential candidates' campaigns?
It has been quite spot on. The opposition has accused the incumbent government for doing little in terms of maintaining food security. It has been accused of corruption that has led to lack of inputs in agriculture. It has been accused of diverting money which is meant for some of the interventions which has been tried on, like irrigable agriculture. And essentially, we have been running short of major foodstuff, the staples, maize being one of them, sugar, milk has been running short. But interestingly also, those in government have been accused of this conflict of interest, because when you ask who is processing milk, who is the miller, you find those in government high up, mixing up in business.
So where in Kenya are the main conflicts taking place? Is this mainly a rural issue? Are there particular geographies that are being affected in Kenya?
Yeah, I think it has just been a question of policy choices. I must say that since 2008, there has been a lot of emphasis on exploration of other commodities, especially in terms of minerals, which has been a focus and the expectation that that will turn around the economy. There has been sheer neglect of agriculture, and where agriculture has been intervention has been almost on large scale foreign direct investment. And yet, at the same time, that has been seen as land grab by the local, especially where they have been trying to get to areas with irrigable water, especially in wetland places.
In wetland places. Okay,
Yeah,
so we also know that Kenya has seen a lot of political conflict along ethnic lines. For instance, in the 2007-2008 election, has the drought triggered conflict along ethnic lines, economic lines?
I think it has triggered conflicts at the level of the political lines, because there's been a accusation of in some of the arable areas, the people indigenous claim that their land has been taken by others from other zones, and that also caused a lot of displacement. A lot of people were displaced, to almost a tune of 650,000 people were displaced from arable areas. And also those who could invest in some of these areas, the prime areas, they have been a bit hesitant, especially when it comes around election time, because they are not sure what that will engender. But of course, the whole idea also has been about marginalization. Some of the areas with wetlands, with water, which is a main ingredient in agriculture, have their areas settled with people who are vulnerable and whose economic fortunes have been dwindling over time.
If you would, talk a little bit more about the political landscape. Incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta and, I understand, his main rival, Raila Odinga, are they or the other candidates addressing the food and land crisis in their campaigns in any real way?
Incidentally, we may say, as it is said here locally, that there are two main horses that are riding very fast to the finishing line. That is the coalition, the Jubilee coalition of Uhuru Kenyatta, and the NASA coalition of Raila Odinga. The two are the only ones that have clear manifestos that are addressing some of these issues. The two are part of those who have been around in the system in leadership for quite a time. And definitely the choices of Kenya could be said as choiceless choice between those who have been around leadership of the country since independence.
And you work on land policy in Kenya.
Yes.
Talk about what your ideal land use policy would be. In your opinion, what would properly deal with the food crisis?
I think our argument has always been that we need to broaden the land access to the majority who are in the rural areas, securing tenure for them, basically securing tenure for people in the pre-urban who could do the pre-urban agriculture that feed the burgeoning population of urbanization in Kenya. So essentially, one of our push has been always to broaden the skewed distribution of land, so that other than having a few people owning massive land that they don't use efficiently and effectively, to broaden the people can access land. And that's where our argument has been, especially for the youth who are energetic, the youth who could do more with land, to be involved in agriculture, other than having people who have served elsewhere, they're retiring, their energies are drained, and the ones going to agriculture. And definitely there's no effective use of land, as much as they could be having capital compared to the youth.
Odenda Lumbumba, the head of the Kenya Land Alliance, a group that works on land reform. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thanks too.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.